Solar flares, are they real, or just a figment of humanity's imagination? A mere urban legend? Are these rumors actually good or bad? Tonight, we'll once again examine the facts from a Japanese perspective. Title: The Monster Solar Flare, the Sun's Hidden Threat to Civilization 1. Introduction: The star that gives life can also kill. We have explored extraterrestrials, some helpful, some frightening. We have explored how humanity might end by asteroid, volcano, nuclear war, climate collapse, or rogue AI. We have explored the strange corners of YouTube, videos that unsettle us for reasons we cannot name. Now, let us look up, not at the night sky, but at the brightest object in our daytime sky, the sun. Our sun is a middle-aged star, about 4.6 billion years old. It provides the light and heat that make life possible on Earth. Without it, our planet would be a frozen, dark rock. But the sun is not a gentle, steady fire. It is a violent, magnetic, exploding ball of plasma. And every so often, it unleashes bursts of energy so powerful that they can reach across 150 million kilometers and disrupt, damage, or destroy our most essential technologies. This is the story of solar flares, specifically, the largest flares that occur roughly once every 11 years, during the sun's peak activity cycle, known as the solar maximum. But there is a problem. The largest flare in modern history occurred in 2003, but it missed Earth. The largest flare to hit Earth directly was in 1859, before the electrical age. If an 1859 level flare happened today, it would cause damage measured in trillions of dollars. It could knock out power grids for months or years. The Carrington event of 1859, the perfect storm. The 2003 Halloween storms. What happened when a giant flare just missed us? The 2012 near miss. How close we came to a catastrophe. What would happen if a Carrington-level event occurred tomorrow? And what we can and cannot do to prepare. Let us begin with the basics. 2. What is a solar flare? And why the CME matters more. First, a quick lesson in solar physics. But I will keep it simple. The sun is made of electrically charged gas, plasma. This plasma is constantly moving, twisting, and tangling the sun's magnetic field lines. When the magnetic field becomes too twisted, it snaps, like a rubber band breaking. That snap releases enormous energy in two forms. 1. Solar flare, a sudden, intense burst of radiation, mostly X-rays and ultraviolet light. This radiation travels at the speed of light and reaches Earth in about 8 minutes. It can disrupt radio signals and damage satellites immediately. 2. Coronal mass ejection, or CME. This is more dangerous. A CME is a massive cloud of magnetized plasma, billions of tons of particles, blasted into space at speeds of up to 3,000 kilometers per second. A CME takes 1 to 3 days to reach Earth. When it arrives, it crashes into Earth's magnetic field, and that collision can create geomagnetic storms. Why are geomagnetic storms dangerous? A small geomagnetic storm happens every few years. A moderate storm can cause localized blackouts, like the 1989 Quebec blackout caused by a CME, which left 6 million people without power for 9 hours. But a monster storm, the kind that happens once a century, could be civilization-changing. 3. The Carrington event, 1859's perfect storm. On September 1st, 1859, a young British astronomer named Richard Carrington was sketching sunspots through his telescope when he saw something remarkable. 2 brilliant beads of white light appeared suddenly within the sunspot group, grew blindingly bright, then faded within minutes. Carrington realized he had just witnessed a massive solar flare. But that was only the beginning. About 18 hours later, much faster than normal, a CME hit Earth. The speed was extraordinary because the previous CME had cleared the path for this one. What happened next is legendary. The sky turned red and green. Auroras were seen as far south as Cuba, Mexico, and Tahiti, places that never see auroras. People in the northeastern United States could read newspapers at midnight by the aurora's light alone. The Carrington event is named after its discoverer. It is the largest geomagnetic storm on record. But remember, in 1859, the world was mostly non-electric. No power grids, no satellites, no internet, no GPS, no cell phones. The damage was limited to about 200,000 kilometers of telegraph wires. If the Carrington event happened today, the damage would be in the trillions of dollars. We will discuss that in detail later. 4. The 2003 Halloween storms. The Great Miss. Fast forward to late October 2003. The sun was near the end of its 23rd solar cycle. Scientists thought activity was declining. Then, without much warning, the sun unleashed a series of X-class flares, the most powerful category, including one of the largest flares ever directly observed. These became known as the Halloween storms of 2003. Several CMEs were launched directly toward Earth. What happened? Satellites. Over 500 satellites had to be manually safed, put into safe mode to protect electronics. Some were permanently damaged. One scientific satellite, called ADOS-2, was lost completely. Power grids. Swedish power grids experienced blackouts. South Africa lost multiple transformers. Even with modern protection, there were regional failures. Astronauts on the ISS. They had to take shelter in the most shielded part of the station. Their radiation exposure was measurable, but not dangerous. Airlines. Flights over the poles were rerouted because of increased radiation. Why was this a near miss? The Halloween storms were powerful, about half as strong as the Carrington event. But here is the key. The most intense CME was angled slightly away from Earth. It hit our magnetosphere, a glancing blow, not a direct hit. A direct hit would have been much worse. Many scientists believe a direct hit from a Carrington-level CME is overdue. 5. The 2012 near miss. We didn't even know on July 23, 2012, the sun erupted with a massive CME, as powerful as the Carrington event. But this CME did not hit Earth. It crossed Earth's orbit where Earth had been just 9 days earlier. In other words, if the eruption had occurred 1 week earlier, it would have hit us directly. The only reason we know about it is that the CME passed by NASA's Stereo A spacecraft, which measured its intensity. Scientists were shocked. Professor Daniel Baker of the University of Colorado later said, "If it had hit Earth, we would still be picking up the pieces." Projections suggested a direct hit would have caused widespread power grid failures lasting months, trillions of dollars in damage, a loss of GPS and communications that would disrupt global supply chains, emergency services, and financial systems. And here is the frightening part. We detected this CME only because a satellite happened to be in its path. If that satellite had been destroyed, or if the CME had hit Earth, we would have had only 24 to 48 hours warning. We came within 9 days of a civilization-altering catastrophe, and most people never knew. 6. What would happen if a Carrington level struck today? Let me paint a realistic picture, step by step, of what would happen if an 1859 level CME hit Earth tomorrow. The first 8 minutes, solar flare radiation reaches Earth at light speed. High-frequency radio communications, used by aviation, maritime, and military, black out globally. Some low Earth orbit satellites lose control or are damaged. The first 24 hours, the CME arrives. Earth's magnetic field compresses. Geomagnetically induced currents surge into power grids. Transformers start to fail. Large power transformers are custom-built, weigh hundreds of tons, and take 12 to 24 months to replace. There are very few spare transformers in the world. Cascading blackouts begin. One failed transformer overloads its neighbors. Within hours, entire regions go dark. The first week, darkness. Half the continent is without power. Hospitals run on backup generators, but fuel supplies are limited. Water and sewage treatment fail without electricity. Tap water becomes unsafe. Refrigeration stops. Food spoils. Grocery stores empty within days. Gas stations cannot pump fuel because pumps need electricity. Transportation halts. Cell towers have backup batteries for about 4 to 8 hours. Then they die. No internet, no phone calls, no emergency alerts. The first month, cold regions, northern US, Canada, Europe, Russia, face winter without heating. Water pipes freeze and burst. The financial system stops because it runs on electronic records. ATMs are empty. Credit cards do not work. Supply chains completely break. Food, medicine, and fuel cannot be transported. Deaths from heat, cold, hunger, and disease begin to mount. A 2012 National Academy of Sciences report estimated that a Carrington-level event would cost the U.S. $1 to $2 trillion in the first year alone, and take 4 to 10 years to fully recover. The long-term rebuilding is slow because transformers take years to manufacture. Shipping them is difficult without electricity. Satellite constellations, including GPS, would take years to replace. Aviation, shipping, agriculture, and emergency response would revert to 1950s technology. The global economy would likely enter a depression deeper than 1929. This is not exaggeration. This is the conclusion of multiple government studies, including reports from the National Academy of Sciences and the UK's Royal Academy of Engineering. 7. Can we prepare or protect ourselves? The good news, we can do something. The bad news, we have not done nearly enough. Short-term actions, already possible space weather forecasting. Satellites like Discover and SOHO give us 15 to 60 minutes warning for solar flares and 1 to 3 days warning for CMEs. A timely warning allows grid operators to disconnect transformers and put satellites in safe mode. Airline rerouting. Planes can avoid polar routes during solar storms, reducing radiation exposure to passengers and crew. Long-term actions. Expensive but possible hardening the power grid. Installing devices like series capacitors and Faraday cages can block geomagnetically induced currents. But retrofitting an entire continent is extremely expensive. Estimates range from 1 billion a 1 billion to 10 billion for the US alone. Strategic spare transformers. Governments could stockpile large transformers. This is relatively cheap, but no government has done it at scale. Satellite shielding and design. New satellites can be built more robustly, but older satellites, which are most of them, remain vulnerable. The political problem. No one wants to pay for a disaster that may not happen in their lifetime. The 2012 near miss was a wake-up call, but most governments responded with more studies, not more funding. Private companies also underinvest because solar storms are low-probability, high-impact events, exactly the kind that businesses and governments ignore until too late. What about an off switch for the sun? Impossible. We cannot prevent solar flares. We can only prepare for them. 8. Conclusion. The sun is not our enemy, but it is not our friend either. Let me bring this to a close. The sun is the source of all life on Earth. Without it, we would not exist. But the sun is also a restless, violent star. Its explosions are the largest in our solar system. visible across millions of kilometers. The largest solar flare in modern history, in 2003, missed us. Will we build a global early warning system that actually triggers action? When a monster solar flare finally hits Earth, not if, but when, our future will depend on the choices we make today. Are we going to be the generation that prepared, or the generation that watched documentaries about the Carrington event and thought, it won't happen in my lifetime? The sun will decide, but we decide our level of readiness. Thank you for listening to this 25-minute overview of the monster solar flare, the sun's hidden threat to modern civilization. Look up at the sun, but respect it. It gives life. It can also take away everything we have built. Good night. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.